John Hale is the Vice President of the Tejas Storytelling Association. Take it away, John.
All right. So, welcome to this workshop of the Tejas Storytelling Association and Elizabeth Ellis. I'm John Hale. Elizabeth is a recipient of both the Lifetime Achievement Award and the Circle of Excellence Award from the National Storytelling Network. She's a frequent favorite at National Storytelling Festival and the Teller in Residence program of the International Storytelling Center. More than 500,000 children have been mesmerized by her stories during her 35-year career as a teller. Adults fall under her spell as well. Her keynotes, filled with stories, have energized and inspired people from public defenders to those who work in child abuse prevention. With TSA, she has been a leader and continues to be a mentor. I present to you Elizabeth Ellis.
Thank you, John. Thank you very, very much. Hello, everybody. I am so glad that you decided to spend some time with me this morning. I am excited to see every single one of you. It is cold in Dallas today, by our standards anyway. And I forgot to put on any socks. So if I start shivering, you'll know that it's not because I'm scared of you, it's because my feet are freezing. I called this a clinic because I wanted you to really think about, oh, I'm sorry. Could everybody please mute themselves for right now? We're getting feedback from somebody. So there, that's great. It's over now. So let's let Betsy Mosier in. She's headed our way. There may be a few people joining us as we go along, but I called this a clinic. I really wanted you to think about the idea of having a yearly checkup. We all are of an age where we go to the doctor. And some of us take that more seriously than others. Some of us go to the doctor and come home and do what the doctor says. Some of us come home and don't pay any attention to what we were told at all until the day before it's time for us to go back to the doctor again. I hope you're not going to be that kind of person. I called it a clinic because I want to really encourage you to think of this as something that you will do annually. That you would stop sometime at the beginning of the year, every year, to do a deep dive into what's the health of your repertoire. I do this every single year, and I find it very valuable. And I hope that some of the things that I ask you to think about will be valuable to you as well. But remember, some of you have worked with me for a long time, and so some of this may seem really repetitious. And others of you are brand new to me, have never worked with me before, and the ideas may be, where did that come from? Because there's such a wide range of experience, I'm going to try to make sure that everybody understands where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish. And also welcome any of you who want to get back in touch with me later to ask questions or ask for more information if there's anything you didn't get. Okay. And I mean that most sincerely. Don't think, oh, I couldn't possibly bother her. Oh, please bother me. Please bother me. Okay. And I really want us to think together about courage. It takes a lot of courage to be a storyteller, different kinds of courage. It takes the kind of courage to get in your car and go to a neighborhood looking for an address that you don't know, that you've never been to before. It takes courage to get up in front of a group of people who are strangers to you and talk. It takes courage to get up in front of the people who know you well and talk. It takes moral courage to be willing to speak truth to power. Sometimes it takes financial courage to be a storyteller. The risks involved in doing this as opposed to that. And it takes courage to step outside the mold of what people around you ordinarily do and become more creative. And along the way today, we're going to talk about a little bit about each of those kinds of courage, especially in the way that those different kinds of courage influence your repertoire. Okay. Morgan Freeman, the actor whom I admire, said, "Courage is the key to life itself." I want you to think of that for a minute. Courage is the key to life itself. Now, you don't really need to worry about writing down any of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. On Monday, you're going to get a handout. Carol Barrow in our office will send it to you from TSA. And it's a pretty extensive handout. So you don't really have to be worried about trying to, unless you want to make some notes of things that mean something especially to you or something you're confused about. Don't give yourself time to write down all this stuff because it's going to come to you in a sweet little packet that you can print off for yourself on any color paper you want to. Okay. Courage is the key to life itself, and it certainly is the key to storytelling. We want to think about why we tell stories. What's the motivation? What are you trying to accomplish? And so I want you to spend some time doing a writing exercise. I would like you to spend 5 minutes, just 5, because we have other things to cover. But the very important writing assignment we're going to start with is writing, a statement of intention. A statement of intention. What is your intention? Why? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the why of what you are doing? Writing that rather than having it spinning around in your head, putting something down on paper can be very valuable to you. It can help guide you in making a lot of other decisions. Okay. So let's begin a timed writing. The way a timed writing works is when I ask you to begin, I want you to write. I want you to write without stopping and without picking your pen up off the paper, just write. Don't worry about spelling, don't worry about punctuation. Just get your thoughts down on paper in 5 minutes. Tell yourself where you can get it out here and look at it. What is your statement of intention? why. What are you trying to accomplish? Begin. Dig a little deeper. One minute left. Draw your writing to a close. Time. I'd love to hear from a couple of you about what you have written. Would anybody like to share what they wrote? Tony, you have your hand up. Tony Hardman.
I was unmuting myself. Okay, basically, I wrote to expose people to the art of storytelling and the oral tradition of passing stories to the present and next generations, to show stories and the telling of those stories represent a wide variety of cultures and subcultures, and that storytelling is the way of preserving those cultures. I would like to show that storytelling can be entertaining, either by making people laugh, cry, or jump in fright. I also believe that storytelling can be a means of making people think, either to reassess what they already believe or to contemplate uh, and incorporate new ideas and beliefs.
My goodness, that's lovely. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I especially appreciate the fact that you included making them jump in fright. Usually people say, talk about tears or laughter, but I'm really, really fond of scaring people too. So thanks, Tony. That was great. Somebody else want to share what they wrote? Betsy, how about you?
She's muted.
You're on mute,
Betsy, you're
Betsy. You're on mute.
muted.
Sorry, I don't think in complete thoughts like
That's
Tony
okay.
does. So I just began with educate, encourage, entertain, and then I fleshed those out with different ways that stories do that.
All right. All right. Well, maybe we've got time for one more. Susie, how about you?
Thank you. Took me a while to be able to unmute. Um,
That's okay.
so, why do I write and tell stories? To influence people. I interest them. I tell things that resonate and or make them think. I connect with them. On the other hand, I do it for myself as a creative action, to clarify what I have in mind, to challenge myself. Sometimes I think that if I never tell another story to anyone else, I'm good. I can just write, improve, learn for my own satisfaction of learning and knowing, and I'll be fine. I went on, but that's the beginning.
Well, Susie, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
You kind of jumped ahead for me a little bit because the next
Great
thing I want
minds.
to ask you to do is go back to the idea of stating your intention. For almost all of you, what you wrote was about the effect that you might have on the outside world. But I'd like you to spend the next 5 minutes writing about why you tell stories for you. What are you trying to accomplish for yourself in the telling of stories? What does it do for you? Or what do you wish it did for you that you're working toward? Okay. So begin 5 minutes writing about why you are telling stories. What is your intention for yourself in the telling of the stories? What do you want to get out of it? 1 minute warning. Time. So we changed the focus from what do we want to accomplish out in the world to what do we want to accomplish for ourselves in this writing exercise. Is there anybody who'd like to share something that they wrote?
Will.
Carrie, we haven't heard from you before. Unmute yourself, please, and talk to us.
Storytelling gives me a forum and opportunity to be in community, to share wisdom as an elder in a non-lecturing way. It provides me with a beautiful chance to be a truth teller. I love the excitement I feel when I'm going to tell a story that I know is good and carries with it an illuminating truth for the listener.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the idea of thinking of yourself as a truth teller. We might need to have a bunch of sweatshirts and t-shirts printed that say that on it. Truth teller. I'd buy one of those and wear it proudly. Somebody else.
I got one. Oop.
Valerie,
Oh.
you have your hand up. Unmute yourself.
Okay, got it. I wrote something similar to Carrie, and then a little more. To share, to create truth and beauty, to experience growth as a person, to discover more about myself.
All right. All right. I resonate with all of those, and I imagine that if I called on many of you at this point, you would go, what she said, what she said, what she said. So we tell stories for a lot of the same reasons, but there are differences between us in the importance of those things and even differences in why we tell it all. You might be wondering why this exercise would be a part of a workshop that's about repertoire. This is foundational. It's foundational for you to think about. Why do you do it? Why do you do it for yourself? What are you getting out of it? Because those things inform what you choose to tell. You need to be clear on what you're trying to accomplish before you can start beginning a repertoire that's really effective for the accomplishment of that feat. Am I making myself clear? Many of you may have spent a lot of time thinking about this, but for most of us, we choose stories and only later think about why. And we certainly don't have a plan. How do you know what you know? Do you have lists? Do you keep records? let's hear from somebody who hasn't spoken before, some of you shy folks. Anybody got a hand up? Mary Davis, how about you? Unmute yourself, Mary.
I lived in Colorado for many years as a teacher, and I had the pleasure of going to my first storytelling conference in Monument, Colorado. And I went to a little workshop, and the guy said that in the workshop to start off by making a list of different experiences in your life that were important to you, or yeah, just different things about stories about your life. So I went right home and made a list of all the different stories in my life, as many as I could think of. And what I started to do, I went back, I taught elementary school, and I went back into my classroom and I started telling these stories at the appropriate times because they all kind of had a lesson to them. And I used to draw the stories like on my board and everything. And that brought so much joy to me. So that was one way that I started to get into storytelling was, through just making a list of personal things that had happened to me. But I did that for many, many years. I did that for about 15 years. And it was a way for the kids to connect with me that I wasn't just a teacher, that I also had these things in my life that were maybe interesting to them. But that's the way I started, was just from personal experience.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us, Mary. It's a wonderful, Tim Couch and I were speaking because he arrived before we started. He's going through a big box of paperwork. And he said it has all kinds of certificates that I received over the years. Every single solitary item in those boxes is the seed of a story. I said that in hopes that it might make the task a little less onerous for Tim. But we are all reaching an age where many of us are beginning to pare down, get rid of things, toss out. It's entirely possible that a box of old paperwork could create a journal full of story ideas. Okay. And every memento that you actually put in the box that's going to Goodwill, just because you're giving away the item doesn't mean you gave away the story. The story you have with you as long as you can think. I used to say, until you die, and a lady in a workshop the other day corrected me. She said, my husband is still living, but he no longer thinks. He can't. So I decided to change my vocabulary for as long as we can think. For me, hearing that a person who's a storyteller has developed Alzheimer's is just about the most painful thing that I can imagine. It makes me weep every time I hear about it. But what do you know and how do you keep track of it? I have heard so many storytellers say that their things are in piles, spread all over the house, that they've never been unpacked from when they moved 5 years ago, and other remarks like that. How can you tell what you know if you don't keep a record of it that's easily accessible? So one of the assignments that I want you to think of very seriously is updating whatever record you keep of what you know. Here's my record. this little yellow notebook. Actually, this little yellow notebook is last year's book. This is this year's book. I always try to get a different color, just to make them easier to tell apart without having to open them and see the dates in them to know. In the front
Elizabeth,
of the book,
Elizabeth, Tony's hand's been up for a while. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I'm sorry,
I don't know if you saw Tony Simmons' hand has been up for quite a while. I don't know if that interrupts your
I
flow or
did
not.
not see that, and thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, your hand has been up.
Well, I, it's okay. I forgot to take it down, but you basically have gone into when you asked how did we keep track, that I guess I've learned that from you because I do have a notebook that I started long time ago writing the stories that I not only, which is different from what she said earlier, not just ideas, but stories that I thought I knew well enough to tell,
Yeah.
not just every story I knew.
Yeah.
And then I kept a big box like Tim had of copies of stories that I, used even when I, was a librarian. But I do have a notebook that I keep for each year, but mine may go 2 or 3 years at a time till I fill it up or something with the dates and the stories I've told. And I do find myself going back to that because I've forgotten. Oh, I didn't remember I told that. Oh, and then I don't have the story there, but I have the name of the story. Then I can, look for my notes and the story itself in another location.
Thank you so much, Tony. And I'm grateful for every single word you said. In my little yellow book, I have a list of all the stories that I know. They're divided by personal stories, traditional stories. I have a list of ghost stories, a list of sacred stories. I use this notebook because I know a lot of people have a record of what they know on their computer. I don't do that because I've had my computer stolen in the past and that entire record disappear. It was hard to resurrect. I'm sure there are many stories that are lost to the ages out of my repertoire because I didn't think of them when I was trying to resurrect the list of stories that were listed in the computer. But the main reason I do it in this small notebook is because I want to take it with me every time I go anywhere to tell. Good Christian people who would never lie about anything will look you straight in the eye and lie like a rug about what the storytelling situation's going to be like in order to get you to come and tell. You have no idea what you're going to find when you get to the place where you're going to tell. You may have made a mistake and think that you were supposed to be there at 8 o'clock to tell to 10-year-olds, only to discover that you were to be there at 10 o'clock to tell to 8-year-olds because you wrote it down wrong. Or all the things you said about needing a quiet place to tell where there were no distractions got lost in the shuffle, or they knew from the beginning, liar, liar, pants on fire, that wasn't going to be the situation when they invited you to come. We thought that it would be lovely if we put you in the frontier village. Okay, the frontier village, that sounds good. You don't know till you get there that that means that you're going to be spending the afternoon between the blacksmith and the sheep shearer. Clang, clang, bah, bah, clang, bah. Lie like a rug. Deacons and elders, ministers of the faith, lie like a rug about what's going to happen. We're going to give the children to you one age level at a time. Nah. You get everybody from the 18-month-old to the 18-year-old in one audience. I want my book with me everywhere I go, anytime I'm going to get ready to tell. I cannot tell you how many times I have said, "Oh, before we start, I need to go to the bathroom." They may wonder why I'm taking my book with me when I go in the bathroom. But it's really none of their business what I'm doing in the bathroom. What I'm doing in there is replanning this set. Because what I plan to tell won't work now that we're in reality land. Reality land rears its ugly head, and I need to start over from scratch. With my book in my hand, I can plan a new set, having seen what's really going to be out there for me to work with. At the back of my book, starting and going forward, I keep a record of where I told everything I told. What did I tell when I came to Betsy's house and did a house concert? I write it all down for a couple of reasons. One is because it helps me remember good combinations of stories to tell together when I go back and look at, oh, that really worked well together. I should do that again. That would work nicely. But also because it's my way of saying to the universe, I'd like to get invited back. And I don't want them to hear the same 6 stories I told the last time I was there. So if I have some idea, if I can look at my calendar and figure out approximately when I was there, I can look for what I told when I was there and not repeat anything. So I want to encourage you, not today while this workshop is going on, but later when you get the handout on Monday, start thinking about pulling everything you know together. How do you know what you know? Okay. In the middle of the book, I jot down ideas for new stories or new ways of doing things, chants, rhymes, jingles, good jokes that work well with 9-year-olds, good jokes that work well with 50-year-olds. Anything I encounter along the way that I think will enrich my interactions with my listeners. Besides, what do you know? You want to remember and have a record. Where did it come from? If you think of storytelling as a work of art, and it is, every work of art has a provenance. Where did it come from? Who did you learn it from? Or what book did you get it from? What peoples does it come from? I was a little startled to be working with a storyteller the other day who'd been telling for a long, long time, who'd never kept any record of that. She didn't have any idea where any of the stories that she told came from, not even what continent they came from, let alone who she heard tell them, who did she learn them from, or what book did she get them out of. I hope that isn't a common experience. Where did it come from? How did it come to you? For me, one of the great joys of storytelling is being able to share with my listeners how the story came to me. Often I get to invoke the names of storytellers who've been dead for decades. When I tell people about the story, tell where the story came from, I get to tell the story of the person who told it to me or the situation in which I heard it. Folklorists call that the meta story. The story about how I got the story is called the meta story. I didn't know it had a formal name, but it does. We want to think through what kind of records we need to be keeping. If you don't have one, I implore you to make a file folder called Permissions Granted and one called Permissions Received. Think about it for a minute. Permissions Received is where you keep the records of all the material that you tell that has a copyright on it. Remember that a copyright means it is someone else's intellectual property. So if you want to tell a James Thurber story, you either have to get permission from James Thurber's estate to tell the story, or you have to wait until that story comes into the public domain. Guess what happened this year? Guess what happened this year? Every year, new things enter into the public domain as they age. And every year, that means a whole new set of material is available to you without violating anybody's copyright because it's in the public domain. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time explaining what public domain is or a whole lot about copyright law, but understand that somebody else's intellectual property does not belong to you, so therefore you have to ask their permission. If you wouldn't steal from them, then you don't want to take their intellectual property without their permission because that's theft. But remember I said make 2 folders. What was the other folder?
Permission granted.
Permissions granted. What does that mean?
Times when someone's asked me if they could tell part of my stories, and I said yes.
Exactly. Permissions granted means you assume that because you are a creative storyteller, other people are going to ask your permission to tell your intellectual property. And you can give permission or not as you choose fit as the situation unfolds, because that's a very personal decision and varies from event to event. But know that other people are going to be asking you for permission to tell things that you have created. If you have found a really unique way to tell a folk tale, people may want to tell your version of it. And if they are ethical people, they will ask for your permission. Okay. If it's your personal story, you can decide whether or not you're willing to give them permission to tell it. That's a little more complicated question. I was sitting at my desk one evening when my front door flew open and my son stalked in. I said, "You look really unhappy." He said, "I'm not unhappy, I'm angry." I said, "What was wrong?" He said, "I went to Fort Worth to Barnes and Noble. While I was there trying to find a birthday present for my coworker, they announced that they were going to have storytelling on the mezzanine. So I thought I'd buy a big cup of coffee and go hear some stories." I said, "That sounds wonderful." He said, "You wouldn't have liked it." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, the first story was one of yours." "Oh," I said. "Well, what makes you think that I didn't give that person permission to tell the story?" And my son's surprising response was, "Because you couldn't give them permission. The story was about me. So I'm the only person who could give that lady permission to tell the story. And I never saw the expletive before in my life." Just because someone in your family gives you permission to tell a story about them does not mean that you can automatically give permission to tell that story to other people. I'd never thought about that before, but I thought Scooter was completely right. I said, "Please tell me you waited till she finished." "Can't tell you that, Mom." "Please tell me you weren't obscene." "Sure can't tell you that, Mom." I did the best I could to try to mend fences with that lady, but I could never coax her out of her house again, no matter what I did. People sometimes call me and say they want my permission to tell a story about my mother, a particular story they have in mind. I don't want anybody telling stories about my mother. I spent years learning to tell stories about my mother. I always ask them if they'd be willing to work on a story about their mother that goes as deep into their relationship as the stories I tell about mine. And sometimes I say, if you will do that and call me back and tell me that story, I'll give you permission to tell the story about my mother. But I'll start telling the story about your mother. "Oh, I wouldn't want you to tell a story about my..." Oh, they begin to understand what I'm talking about at that point. Whatever you create as your own property, intellectual property, and you have the right to give or refuse permission. But remember that whatever goes around comes around. Whatever goes around comes around. If you are very, very protective of your stories and refuse to grant permission to other people to use your material, what is likely to happen? It's quite likely that whenever you ask other people for their permission, they won't grant it. So remember the story of stone soup? Take what you got and put it in the pot. There is enough material in that great cauldron of story for every one of us to be fed and to feed our audiences, our listeners. But if everybody scoops from the pot and nobody's willing to put anything back in, after a while, you're scooping up the dregs from the bottom. Then you find there's nothing left in there but that sad-looking bay leaf. So if you want other people to be generous with your requests, be generous in what you give out, because that is the way the world works. Whether you think of this metaphysically or the pure practical Storytellers are big talkers, and everything that you do, everybody in the storytelling community knows before the week's over? Well, I asked her if she'd let me tell that folktale that she'd worked so hard on, and she said no. So if you get the reputation for being stingy with your material, it's pretty likely that people will go, well, yeah. I think I have a dental appointment. Okay. So in addition to knowing what you know, you want to know where it came from and where you got it. And you want to know that you have legal authority to share it with other people. Some of the material that you may tell might not belong to an individual, but rather belong to groups of people, like the Choctaw Nation, for instance. Many different cultures have restrictions on their stories, and you want to know what those are. If it's a story from South Africa, from particular people who live in South Africa, you want to know what those restrictions would be and abide by them, because that's the fair thing to do. Anything else is there's a term I want and I can't bring it into my mind. In the past, we've seen a lot of what's mine's mine and I'm keeping it, what's yours is mine and I'm taking it. Cultural
appropriation,
but that wasn't the word I was looking for.
Vultures.
Cultural manifest destiny.
Oh.
Manifest destiny is we took your land. Cultural manifest destiny is now we're coming back for your culture. So if this story is from the Navajo people, and coyote stories are not told after the first thunder of the year, guess what? If you want to tell the story and you're asking their permission to tell their story, then you need to abide by their cultural limitations on when the story is told. Coyote stories are told in the wintertime. They aren't told in the summer. In the summer, you should be busy in the fields making sure there's enough to eat for the coming year. Okay. It's where most of those, or this story, is this story sacred to anybody? That's an important question. If it is, you want to treat it with the same respect that you would treat a story that is sacred to you. So when when the handouts come to you on Monday, find a time when you can spend regrouping, organizing, listing, all those things that you've been telling for ages that you never got anybody's permission to tell. Now would be a good time. It's a new year, a clean slate. It's also a good time for looking to see what came into public domain this year. The next thing I want you to think about is, what have you outgrown? What have you outgrown? The stories that you tell as a novice storyteller may be dear to you, but they may not necessarily be stories that still serve you. What have you outgrown? For me, people often ask me, especially in interviews, how many stories do you know? The answer to that is a little over 400. Nobody ever says to me, how many of those would you tell in a public place? That's a different question altogether. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains in the late 1940s, early 1950s. I know stories that you could not pry out of my mouth if you had a crowbar because of the racism involved in them, or the sexism that's involved in them, or the treatment of the handicapped, or the way women are treated, the way the other is presented, whoever the other happens to be. The only circumstance under which I think I could imagine myself telling some of those stories is if I were asked to come to a folklore class at a university to tell to students who understood that what I was telling was a slice of folklore from a particular time and place. And still, I would feel like I needed a hot shower when I got home. Okay. So, as you are looking at what you know, think about what have you outgrown? When I was a younger storyteller, I told stories that had a lot of props. I spent a great deal of time making those props. I often spent more time making the props than I did finding and learning the story, because it takes a long time to make props. When I began traveling as a storyteller, I began to think of those props differently, and I would choose my stories depending on which props seemed like I could cart them around with me. Would they fit in my suitcase? How was I going to get them to where I was going to tell? But one day it occurred to me that I didn't need those props anymore, that I had grown as a teller and I could do for myself what I had always relied on the props to do, which was get and keep the listener's attention. I even decided that because I could do that without props, that I really should be doing that, because one of my reasons for telling is to help people use their imagination. And if one of my goals is to help people use their imagination, then I should be asking of the listener as much of that as I possibly could. And that had grown in my confidence as a teller and in my ability as a teller enough set the props aside and simply focus on asking people to make all the pictures in their own mind. Not because, look at me, look what I did, but rather because I am being of more service to the people that I tell if I ask them to do the imagining on their own without the intervention of a whole lot of things to look at, a whole lot of things that would have served me in the past, but don't serve me anymore. Right now, you may be thinking about a story that you've been telling that you have outgrown, or a kind of story you've been telling that you've outgrown. Would you write that down for me, for yourself? What have you been telling that you've outgrown? We have a couple of people who are still writing. We'll give them a moment. The next question is, what stories do you need to drop from your repertoire? Oh, no, don't say that. I need every single story I know. I don't have enough already. Well, you're going to replace the ones you drop with ones that serve you better. Ones that serve you better. But there are going to be 3 categories that you might consider dropping. The first one is, you have told that story too often. The worst thing that can happen to you as a storyteller isn't that somebody in the front row will throw up in your shoes. It's that you will stop listening to yourself. Nothing is a bigger recipe for disaster than that you would stop listening to yourself as you were telling. And you wake up in the middle of a story and you realize you don't know if that's the second time you said that repetitive line or the third time. And you don't know what to say next. I am using that as an example because another storyteller told me once that that happened to them. It has nothing to do with me. I've never been in that situation. Liar, liar, pants on fire. It's particularly easy for it to happen if it's a folk tale that has a repetitive refrain in it. But it could even happen to you in a personal story if you've told it to so many times that you've stopped listening. You lose track of what you said and you don't know where to go next. And you're standing in front of a whole group of people and they're all staring at you and wondering why she was so eloquent a moment ago and now she seems completely tongue-tied. For those stories, I recommend not that you drop the story altogether, but that you put it away for some time. For me, there is a list of called stories I am not going to tell in 2026. Even if that story seems like the best story for the occasion, I'll find another best story to tell for the occasion. And I'm not telling these 5 or 6 stories at all this coming year because I've told them so often I don't listen to myself when I tell them. Okay. Remember that one of the basic laws of the universe is you can't give away what you don't have. You can't give away what you don't have. If you don't have any enthusiasm for what you're telling, it's almost impossible to give enthusiasm about it to your listeners. Okay. Farmers let fields that have been over-farmed lie fallow. I'm suggesting that there may be stories in your repertoire that you would be well served to let lie fallow for the coming year. At the beginning of the year next year in 2027, when you pull them out, it's like getting to visit an old dear friend again. Instead of ho hum, it becomes, oh, I know where I could tell this. The second reason you might want to drop something from your repertoire is because too many other people tell it. If you know that the people who live in the same area that you live in are people who hang out in the same Zoom concerts that you hang out in, are going to tell particular stories, you want to stand out by offering something different than what they tell, something different than what they've already heard. I hope to live and die without ever telling again Wiley and the Hairy Man. I love that story, but so many people have it in their repertoire and they tell it so often. I've stopped telling it altogether. It's on my don't tell it this year list. I think this is about the 5th year in a row I've put it on that list. Because people have heard it. People in North Texas have heard it and heard it and heard it. So it's my job to dig deep and find something else and bring something else to the party. The third reason is things happen. Things happen. Maybe they are big things, maybe they are small things, but the world keeps changing. Stories that used to be socially acceptable become unacceptable because of something that's in them. That can even happen with a personal story. I had a slap your thigh funny story about being too big a coward to ask my mother for her car keys. I told it frequently. I love that story until the day out in California that an elderly man ran over and killed a number of people. I realized my behavior wasn't funny. It was cowardly. I saw my story in a very different light. I saw that if I didn't take action, my mother was quite likely to be in the evening news on television. Elderly lady hits school bus. Elderly lady takes out family of 5 in a pickup truck. It wasn't funny to begin with when I looked at it from the point of view of the people who've been hit by the car. Sometimes we read things in the newspaper or see things on the evening news that make us see something in a different way, that shift our perception of it. And we look at our story differently. And sometimes you can't fix what's wrong with it. Sometimes you can tweak them and continue to tell them with some changes. But often they aren't salvageable. And if they aren't, you need to put them away. People are much more conscious now of discrimination, of inappropriate behavior with children than they have been in the past. Many of the things that might be shared with a public group of people that you didn't know with laughter in the past might have many of the women in the audience getting up and walking out of the building because of what you said. So, 3 reasons for putting a story aside. You've told it too much and you don't listen to it anymore. Too many other people tell it. If that's the case, the too many other people tell it, maybe you don't tell it in your area, but if you go somewhere else where people may not be likely to have heard it, you could tell it there. And the world has changed, and we need to change with it. I am imagining that each of you thought of at least one story in your repertoire that could do with some tweaking, if not putting aside altogether. Let's spend the next 3 minutes writing about the story in your repertoire that you think you need to change or forget. One more minute. Time. Would anybody like to share something that came up for them about their own repertoire? Something that you think that you should drop or put away for a while?
Judy has her hand up.
Who does?
Judy.
Betsy?
No, Judy had her hands up.
I'm sorry. Judy, I'll be back to you. I
Oh.
saw Betsy first. I'm sorry.
I don't tell many, and I haven't told them in a long time, but noodlehead stories, because there's a difference when I stop to think about it between a story that's humorous and a story that's humorous at someone else's expense. And maybe they need to be reworked into stories of cooperation and discovery, and not just a cheap laugh at another group of people.
Right. That's wonderful, Betsy. Thank you for sharing that. Humor at someone else's expense is a good example of things that we might consider dropping altogether. And you're right, many of them could be reworked. Judy?
Yes. Thank you, Elizabeth. This goes back to a personal workshop I attended with you a number of years ago in West Virginia. I had a story where there was an incident where a man pulled a knife on me and put it to my throat. And I thought it was hilarious, given the setting and the location. You were horrified. And you talked me through it on why you were horrified. So I went back to the story and I reworked it. He still does a physical reaction, but it's not the threat of a knife to my throat. He still gets the point across that he was upset with me, but not in that threatening manner. And you helped me see that I was viewing it from the lens of where I was living and that culture. And you helped me understand that if I took that out into a story in the world, it would be horrifying, particularly now. And so it just made it, I think a better story. And I thank you for it. And I wasn't happy when you questioned me, but you made me understand it.
I have that effect on people, Judy, believe me. But it's often true that what we have in mind to tell can traumatize other people. We have to think it through. We all know that words have power, and we love thinking about that in one way. But it's also true that words have power to upset, to anger, to enrage. Yeah. And we don't know what other people have experienced. So some people traumatize more easily than other people do. Yeah. I remember telling once in an elementary school setting, and a little girl really burst into tears and was openly sobbing, which was very upsetting to the other children that were around her. And I said to her, "You see things on TV that are scarier than this." And she said, "Yes, but they're not real." The difference between what someone watches on the screen or on the TV set and what they hear in a story is often that the story feels so real to the person hearing it, as though it is happening to them, and can therefore be quite traumatizing to them. So, a line I've stepped over more than once
Do you see
over the
other hands
years.
that are up? Or are you through? Tony Hardman's?
Tony. I can't find you, Tony.
Okay. One I was thinking about, I mean, I like it. It's a great story and everything, but it is a Native American story. And I realize that probably that's not something I should be telling. The reason that I told it was because the first time I heard the story was in a Utah history class. And the story is the story of how Mount Timpanogos in Utah, why it looks like a sleeping woman. And if you look at it, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a sleeping woman. And this is a Native American legend um, as to why it looks that way. Now I've researched it, and there are probably like 5 tribes in Utah that tell the story. So it's not the same. It's
Right,
not like it's only a Cherokee story
right.
or something
There are
like that.
variants of it.
Yeah. But I'm wondering if maybe that is something I need to drop, even though I am from Utah, and it talks about a Utah geographical feature, is probably something I should not be telling.
Well, could you, can you find out whether or not there are any restrictions on the story?
I haven't found any, but I also know it's just kind of like etiquette. You don't tell. And basically, where I learned this was on Northern Exposure, and they were having an etiquette class, and it was you do not tell, it is bad etiquette to tell stories that are not of your culture. And because I'm not Native American, then I'm being impolite because I'm telling a Native American story.
Well, it's something that raises issues that needs to be thought about, and you'll have to decide what you want to do. But it does not appear to be something that has any restrictions on it.
Not that I'm aware of. And I've researched it because I researched the story and I wanted to say, if nothing else, when I told the story, I wanted to say, well, this comes from this tribe.
Right.
But the
Exactly.
thing of it is, there's like 5 tribes that tell that version of that story.
Well, that's not uncommon because people traveled and interacted with one another, and stories got passed from group to group. It's like a number of stories that are common to all of the southeastern tribes, like the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, all have a version of many of the same stories. They're variants. They vary from one group to another, but the story, the basis of the story is the same.
Mhm.
You could get a PhD in looking at the connection between where stories are told and the travel down the Silk Road back in history. Many of the stories that we know come from the travel down the Silk Road and would be told, a version of it would be told from everybody, but from China to Turkey to, etc. Cinderella's a perfect example of a story that's traveled thousands of miles, and hundreds of storytellers have told it and put themselves into it.
Yeah.
So that the culture
that's
in the story.
That's another motif I researched.
Right.
And it is estimated that there are over 5,000 different Cinderella stories throughout various cultures in the world.
Yeah, I have a book that has 482 in it, right over there on my bookcase. Yeah.
Yes.
Elizabeth, can I share one more?
Yes. Who's speaking?
Michael.
Michael.
From a personal standpoint, what I've learned, a couple. One, I used to always talk about at funerals, for example, about my dysfunctional family, because I've got two mothers, stepbrothers, sisters, half this, that, and the other. And it took an uncle to pull me aside and say, "There's a better way to say that. We're not a dysfunctional family. We're, so now we're." I just come up with much better ways to say it and not be that we're dysfunctional. Another one, too, more recently, I've learned that when I go to speak, particularly at funerals, it's not about me, so the story should not be about me. And I think everybody that dies goes to heaven, so you don't spend a lot of time saying bad stuff about the person who died. Like, I remember when me and Joe were drinking beer, before he died. There might be a better story to tell.
Yeah. Those are both good points, Michael.
And I think Deb Waddell has her hand up, and I'll let you go.
Debbie?
Yeah, back to Native Americans. I'm working on a story right now that happened to my grandfather when he rounded up ponies with the Native Americans, and a negative situation arose where they tried to kill him, but it was resolved without a problem. But in telling about it, it's not because the culture has a specific story I'm telling, but I worry because I don't want to step on toes of the Native Americans. To say something negative, but I mean, I would establish the characters of the two men more as, well, they were kind of bullies, but I don't want to make it out as if all Native Americans are bullies by any means.
Have you told the story to people who are Native American?
Not yet. I'm trying to do more research just about the Native Americans in that area, but I haven't got a resource right at the moment to ask.
Well, we can get together and explore some ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thinking about what needs to be dropped or let lie fallow brings us to, what do we need to add? Those of you who have worked with me before have heard my the way I categorize stories. To me, no matter where the story comes from or what kind of story it is, there are really basically only about 4 ways that listeners can respond to a story. There's ha-ha, aha, ah, and amen. Ha-ha is obvious. Stories that make people laugh. But every one of these categories exists from the most broad-based and slapstick to the most subtle. A funny story can be everything from an old Jack tale with lots of humor in it to the writings of someone like James Ferber or Isaac Bashevis Singer, whose stories aren't slap your knee funny, but are funny because of what they show us about the human condition. We need a lot of ha-ha stories in our repertoire. We need a lot of ha-ha stories in our repertoire because they're a great way to catch people's attention. They make a very good way to start a storytelling program. We also need those stories because this is a time when people are anxious and on edge. And throwing back your head and laughing is good medicine. It makes people forget what they're worried about. It makes people forget their troubles. Ha-ha stories are sacred. I defend that, no matter what they're about. Because you can't laugh in the past or the future. You can only laugh in the present. Every sacred teaching teaches us about the importance of being here now, being right here, right this minute, aware of where we are and what's going on around us. Awareness, mindfulness. There's no better way to be here now than to laugh. To throw back your head and howl with laughter, to laugh till the tears are running down your cheeks, to laugh till the people around you are punching one another and going, "What is the matter with that woman?" It's good medicine. Good medicine. But remember that if you've heard something before, it's not quite as funny as it was the first time. So you can't keep telling the same funny stories to the same audiences and keep expecting the same reaction. You got to keep finding new material, because if you heard it 2-3 times before, it's really not that funny anymore. Aha stories. Many of those are stories that teach us something, that instruct us in something. It might be a historical story that teaches us something. I didn't know that there was a time in American history when women had no rights at all. But also, many ghost stories are aha stories. Oh, I get it. I've got it all figured out. Aha. That little girl that they saw at the top of the stairs in the white nightgown, that's the same child that died when the carriage turned over. I've got it. I've got it all figured out. We are thinking people, curious people. We love to puzzle things out. So in that category come all those old stories that have riddles in them. And all those stories that have words that have double meanings in them. all those how and why stories, pourquoi stories. Pourquoi is French for how come, why turtles' shells are cracked, why the sky is blue, why the sea is salt, why robins have red breasts, why chipmunks have striped. There are so many from every culture around the world. How and why, pourquoi stories. So aha stories is a big category with a lot of subdivisions, subtypes in there. Okay. Awe stories. Awe stories are the kinds of stories that fill the human heart. If you stand at the back of an audience when Donald Davis is telling at the end of the story, you can actually physically hear that sound. 300 or 400 people or 1,000 people making the same noise at once, and that noise is, oh. They're harder to describe than some of the other kinds of stories, but like pornography, we know it when we see it. Awe stories. They could be romances. They could be personal stories, be folk tales. They have many different sources. But the effect on the listener is the same. And the last category is amen. Amen is a word that comes originally from the Sanskrit that means so be it. Story to which you can give affirmation, complete effort. Yes, let life be lived like that. That's the way it should be. Yes. Often they are stories of inspiration. They are often short and give good closure. Ha ha, aha, ah, amen. If you have questions about any of this, I think your handout will straighten them out for you pretty well. Okay. You want stories in every one of those categories. To be able to tell stories in lots of different situations, you need a repertoire with lots of different kinds of stories. We all have one kind we favor. I think of myself as being the queen of the 20-minute tearjerker. But to be able to tell in every situation in which I find myself, I need to be able to scare the snot out of people. I need to be able to encourage people. I need to make people laugh. We want to have a repertoire that's large enough, broad enough, and deep enough to support anything that we are asked to do, any job that comes to us. So what do you need to add? If you sit down and make a list of those 4 different kinds of, make 4 lists, one for each of those kinds of story, you're going to find that you know a lot more in one category than in the others. That means you need to start building the number of stories you know in the short categories. Do I need more funny ones? Do I need more aha ones? Do I need more inspirational ones? What do I need to be prepared for what I might need to be telling and doing? Here's another good question I want you to ask yourselves when you get finished with making your lists. What story keeps coming up for you to tell that you keep ignoring? What topic or individual story or kind of story keeps bobbing up to the surface going, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, and you keep pushing it away and going on about your business? Write for a couple of minutes about that story that keeps popping up that you haven't worked on or that you don't tell at all. And think about why. Why do you keep pushing it aside? I think I only have time to ask one person to tell us about something that keeps coming up that they haven't worked on. Anybody have a hand up for that?
I do. Sue.
Sue? Who's speaking?
Sue Coombs.
Oh, Sue. Okay. Hi, Sue.
Hi. I don't know why it says Sarah Evans on my. It's so weird. Um, there's a story. My dad was Air Force, and so we traveled around the world. I've collected mainly folktales, fairy tales, places that I have loved. One story as a teacher that has hit me so hard, and I've had it. I have the actual book, and then I researched the actual information about the atomic bomb landing during World War II or ending the Pacific War on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The name of the book is Faithful Elephants. Some of you may know it, but it's when the zoo, they were told they had to kill their animals. And it was focused on these elephants. And the passion and love from the Japanese is so emotional. And it's a true story. It needs to be told. The humanity of that moment, of that just moment in time where it just pulls your heart out in every way, and it can be connected to the world. I have tried so many times to write and rewrite, but because it's so emotional, I still have to find a way. I think I know that story needs to be told. I'm glad it's written. I, but I want to get it out there. But I need to be able to do it emotionally intact so that um, I could put some type of humor into it. And like you were saying, Elizabeth, I walk away going, it's impossible right now. But it hits, like you said, it hits me more times than not to get back to that and make it work.
That's a perfect example of what I was thinking about, Sue. Thank you for sharing that. I want to applaud you for your interest in telling it the way you were willing to be open to it. And I understand not being emotionally ready to tell something. Sometimes it takes a long time to learn to tell a story. You know, you can learn the story itself in a few minutes, but learning to tell it in a public place is a different experience altogether. And sometimes it depends on where we are in our life journey, that we are more fragile at times than at others. But I hope that you will feel encouraged to continue to work on this story and not give up on it. You are correct in that it is a story that truly needs to be told and could do with a lot of people learning it and telling it. Good luck with it. And if I can do anything to support you in that, please let me know.
Thank you.
Often we don't tell stories that keep coming up because we are afraid. Maybe we're afraid that the idea is too big for us. Maybe we're afraid that we will reveal too much of ourselves. Maybe we're afraid, as Sue mentioned, that we will lose control. Maybe we're afraid that there'll be repercussions if we move forward with telling something. But maybe you just say, I cannot even imagine where I would ever get the chance to tell it. I'm a firm believer in if you build it, they will come, from the Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. I have never learned a story in my life, no matter how off the wall it might have been, that an occasion didn't arrive for me to tell it. Sometimes it has almost felt like the occasion was waiting for me to catch up with it, waiting for me to have done the work. Through some women in Tennessee, I have 9 hours of interviews with a woman who grew to adulthood in Nazi Germany during World War II. I am doing all the research necessary to make programming from that set of stories, both as a solo storyteller and with Sarah Brady, a younger teller who has also done a lot of work about Nazi Germany. My father died in World War II, so my motivation for telling those stories is very personal, because the actions of that nation changed my family's entire future and threw us into poverty and grief that continues even today. I am frightened by the work, the enormity of it, the possibility for repercussion, the possibility of losing control in front of other people. But I am committed to it. I believe it is important and worth the effort and energy that it takes to create something from that material. I didn't ask for it, it asked for me. It was sent to me by the lady who did the interviews. After hearing me tell, she shared the material with me and asked me to do this. Sometimes we find a story, sometimes a story finds us. It does happen. But know that your work is important, that what you do is meaningful, that you are an artist. And because you are an artist, what you do makes a difference in our world. In the handout you're going to be receiving, there will be some affirmations. An affirmation is a statement, a positive statement. The repetition of it can be useful in helping you change your mind, in helping you grow into something perhaps larger than you are accustomed to being. Think of an affirmation as being like the framework for a house. If you were going to build a house, you wouldn't just start slapping bricks together. You'd have to have a plan. Affirmations hold out those ideas that we may be aspiring to and are moving in baby steps toward. I encourage you, when you receive the handout, to work with the affirmations, and there'll be some instructions about working with affirmations that go with it. For me, especially since I had a stroke a few years ago, writing them down on paper over and over again is the most effective way for me to stay focused on the work and not wander off into space. Our allotted time is up. I want to encourage you to set some goals for the year 2026. Goals to be effective need to be measurable. I want to be a better storyteller isn't a goal, it's a wish. Measurable. I want to find and learn 6 new stories this year. Is a measurable goal. In January of 2027, you can look at that goal and see whether you achieved it or not. You can never figure out whether or not you achieved, I want to be a better storyteller. Besides being measurable, the goal has to be realistic. If you're carrying 2 graduate courses and working a full-time job, your list of goals is probably going to be pretty short. That's realistic. If you have a brand new baby, that's going to have an effect on what your goals are. If you're caring for your elderly mother, etc. Be realistic in the goals that you set. And the third, and perhaps the most important about goals, is they need to be yours and not somebody else's. I could spend another 2 hours sitting here telling you what I want you to do this year. But those would be my goals for you, and that doesn't count. So it doesn't matter what your best friend thinks you should be doing or what your significant other thinks you should be doing. What do you feel led to do? That's what's important. They need to be your goals, not somebody else's. Measurable, reasonable, and your own, entirely your own. I want to thank you for coming, for being with me today. It's my joy to be with you. If I can be of any help to you in the future, please let me know. If after you've looked at the handouts and really worked through them, if you have questions, please email me. I'll put my email address in the chat. My email address is storyellis9@gmail.com. Let me hear from you. There it is. Let me hear from you. Can I put
you,
the
Miss
email on the
Elizabeth.
handout? Yes, Susie, I'd be glad to do that. It'll be right down there by the copyright line.
Hey, Miss Elizabeth, can I make some TSA announcements as we
Absolutely.
close?
Go for it, John.
This is Michael, but I
Oh,
want to make
Michael,
sure
I'm
you guys
sorry.
know our whole thing with TSA is to make sure that you get a chance to learn, practice, and perform storytelling. That's our way of doing storytelling. So with our virtual guild events, with our circles, with our workshops, all those are designed just for that. So Thursday we had one of our guild events with Houston. Hopefully you got a chance to participate in that. Coming up, we've got the Circle on Monday, and that's going to be a good opportunity for you to get a chance to speak. On Thursday, we've got the workshops, the Mastering Storytelling workshops. So it's going to be a full month. The idea is not to overwhelm you, but just to give you as many options as possible. And know that the festival is March 12th through the 15th in Denton. I would encourage you to register as soon as possible. And please get your hotel room. We've already sold out of the Spring Hill Suites. So Hampton Inn, which is right across the street, is the next one. But you want to do it quick because they've got Jehovah's Witness and soccer and all kinds of stuff happening in Denton. So you want to get, there'll be hotel rooms. You just don't want to be that far away. So the sooner you better. And then after that in June, we've got the conference June 12th through the 13th. It's also going to be in Denton. And then TSA is hosting the NSN conference, which is going to be out in Amarillo, Texas, which is going to be in July. So we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff all year. Like I said, not to overwhelm you, but to give you plenty of opportunities. So thanks for showing up for this one, because this is definitely one of our big ones. And I think we did pretty good. I'll turn it back over to John. We've got to get back to our board of director meeting. You're on mute, John. There you go. Oh, and we'll send out the recording, and we'll send out Elizabeth's handout to everybody that was here, because all you guys paid.
All right, we want to thank Elizabeth. So everybody, if you give a round of applause. And I mean, that's great. She let us know that we can contact her, email her, and she'll help you out. We appreciate all you've done. And, you know, this was great function for Tejas Storytelling to be able to receive that kind of training. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, John. And thanks everybody for coming. Don't forget to support TSA.